Well, I first want to thank everyone who contributed to the wonderful videos sharing the work of our mission team and the ministries that we are involved in. I got a little teary-eyed when I watched it because I am amazed every day by the work of ICM, In-Town Collaborative Ministries, their staff, and what their volunteers are doing. If you haven't found them on social media, do so. Sign up. Their posts and their stories each week are inspiring and encouraging. And then SIM, the Mayan Intercultural Seminary, is ministering in areas that just aren't reached by other larger organizations. All of the work that we're involved in is not big and not splashy, and yet in each of these places, people on the margins, people with needs that have fallen through the cracks know that someone somewhere cares. People who feel rejected or unseen know that someone sees them and respects them and is accompanying them on this sometimes painful journey of life. And this is really where the kingdom of God exists. This is what Jesus is talking about pretty much all the time, but especially in the stories that we are reading today. Because he was always trying to help us see that the kingdom of God is near, that God's activity is right here, moving and growing in those same processes that bring about physical life as we know it. So with these parables, Jesus is saying God is as close as the food that we eat, the air that you breathe, the trees that give you shade. If you want to know what God is up to and how you can be a part of it, well, it's like this. It's like as if someone would scatter seed on the ground and then would go to sleep and rise the next day, and the seed would sprout and grow, and he doesn't know how. I think this parable is getting to the idea that life is mysterious, relationships are mysterious. We get to be a part of the process, but we're not in control. I mean, I can honestly say that if I plant a seed and I go to sleep and I wake up every day, I still have no idea how that plant is growing. And when Jesus first uttered these words, people had no idea about DNA or biochemistry. And even today, with our scientific understanding of the processes of biological growth, there is still an element of mystery in how a seed will grow, in whether or not a garden will flourish, in what particular characteristics will come from that genetic code. There's still a sense of mystery to growing life, both physical and spiritual. Martin Luther said, "If you truly understood a single grain of wheat, you would die of wonder." And from the parables of Jesus, we learn that this wonder is where God is at work. For Jesus is reassuring us that God is active and at work in this world, no matter how things may appear. And with this next parable, Jesus tries to shed light on another aspect of God's activity in the world. He says, again, think about it this way. We could compare the kingdom of God to a mustard seed, which when planted in the ground is the smallest of all the seeds on earth. And yet it grows up and becomes the greatest of all shrubs, and it puts forth large branches so the birds can make nests in them. Something unimaginably tiny becomes surprisingly large and full and useful. And this seed that he uses in particular might have been surprising to those first listening because mustard seed was not something that most farmers would plant. They might have even been a little bit offended by the reference to this invasive weed. No one could control it, or once it was planted, they couldn't get rid of it. And that seems to be what Jesus is trying to get at. He's explaining God's own grassroots approach for transforming the world. When God is at work, it may seem like not much is happening. It may look like failure by the world's standards. But don't be fooled. There's a lot going on, and no one can stop it, and no one and nothing could separate us from the love of God. These scriptures, these stories inspire us to see the divine energy present in unexpected places. We have to look beyond the obvious to discover God moving in unlikely persons and situations. In all things, God is working for good, though the seeds of God's realm may appear small and unimportant. Great possibilities are on the horizon. We can only see if we see from God's eye view, with eyes of faith. For God works through the simple things, through humble people making faithful efforts to love and to give and to care, to be Christ in the world, sometimes quietly without much fuss and fanfare. The news can keep telling us that the church is shrinking and coming to an end in our lifetime, but the truth is something altogether different. It just isn't splashy enough for the news. For the Spirit of God is in the roots. It is growing out of sight. It is taking new forms and sprouting in unexpected places. You have seen it. You've seen it in the people and places. You could feel something that God is at work here. Something mysterious, creating new possibilities that you could not have predicted. You've seen the seeds of God's love springing forth into life in each small effort made towards seeking peace, and people sharing hope with those who find themselves in despair. This is where we see the mysterious ways of God. Today we saw it in these videos. The staff of the Mayan Intercultural Seminary is small, but their influence spreads throughout many villages in the provinces of Chiapas. And as they partner with CIPAS, an international organization, they're connected to peacemaking ministries from Europe throughout Central America. Our in-town collaborative ministry started as a very small group of ministers and rabbis in our local area, coming together to try to meet the needs of people living on the streets. And slowly, over time, it has grown into a larger ministry, including more and more volunteers, more and more social workers, feeding families and helping individuals finally find safe housing and find the needs met that they need, recovery, ways to get income. They're doing wonderful, amazing work from a very small start. Our mission team working with Mercy Church to feed people needing help and housing, that's not likely to make national news. But we know that each week there are individuals who are given a sense of dignity and respect, knowing there is a place where they are understood. With the Black Inmate Commissary Fund and the efforts to end mass incarceration, people who have felt forgotten have some hope in their lives. I believe that we have been planted in this place, in this time. God is at work in those mysterious ways right here in our midst. We are not in control of what happens. We are invited to participate. We are here to nourish life within us and around us, allowing the seed of the Spirit that is planted in each heart to grow from that tiny sprout into a large, beautiful tree. So if you would like to get involved in any of these ministries that we have been sharing today, just let us know, text, email, call, and we will get you connected with the people so that you can share your skills and your talents and your love with those around us. But for now, let us sing in celebration of the work of God in the world.